In today's video, we're going to be talking about a woman named Lacey Fletcher. She was 36 years old. And you guys, this is going to be actually a really hard one to stomach because she was left to rot on her couch for 12 years while she was still alive. On the 3rd of January in 2022, at around 2 a.m., Lacey's mother, Sheila, called 911 to report that her daughter had stopped breathing. And when authorities arrived on the scene, it was SAR horrific. And they were so shocked by what they saw that they immediately called the coroner. Doctor, you will become. And for a coroner who has seen so much death, for a coroner to say that it is the worst thing that he's ever seen says everything. He told a journalist that he was so shocked by what he saw that even after practicing as a physician for 30 years, that he agreed for an entire week over this. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. He also said, quote, "I opened the door, walked into the house. There was a stench, an odor, feces, fecal matter, urine. You couldn't hold your breath." The town sheriff also said, quote, "I've been a sheriff for 6 years, and I've had a lot of things happen here in East Feliciana Parish. But this type of scene, this is by far the worst." Before we get into it, I just quickly want to thank today's sponsor, NordVPN. I'm sure they need no introduction by now. You guys know they are my tried and true. I've been using them lately to watch the USA Love Island because this season of Love Island USA has kind of been playing. I'm normally a Love Island you can't go through and through, but USA Love Island this season was just better. It's been really good if you guys haven't seen it. VPN to USA and watch it, and it's also I've been using it to watch A Good Girl Got to Murder on Netflix, which I guess you can't watch in the UK. So I got to put myself in the watch it. I read the book for that series a really long time ago, and I'm a sucker for a book adaptation, so it's been good. And if you guys have read the book, then you might not even know that they had a show out about it unless you're in the US. So the more you know, and of course, I always have my VPN on in public, in the airport, in the tube, just any public space, because people are slimy, and Nor is out there behind the scenes protecting you from all those slimy trackers, the ads, the malware that keep you protected on public fee when you're traveling and you're just trying to get your bearings in a new place or just trying to get around the city. And it's not going to slow you down either, thankfully, because no VPN is the fastest VPN on the market, so it's not going to slow down your connection or your Wi-Fi or anything like that, which is particularly important for me anyway. Slower Wi-Fi, nothing annoys me more. Honestly, if there is one thing you guys take from me, it is to get on NordVPN. I truly do not think you will regret it. And if you guys go to nordvpn.com/Belfiore, you will get a huge discount on the purchase of a 2-year plan plus an extra 4 months free. And it's all risk-free as well because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I will leave that link. I will leave all of that information in the description box for you guys to check out. Make sure you do. And let's go ahead and get into today's case. So this case takes place in the small town of Slaughter, which is in Louisiana, where the Fletcher family lived. The town had a population of less than 1,000 people. So it was a very, very small town, vibes, everyone sort of thing. And Lacey was born there on the 25th of November in 1985 to parents Clay and Sheila Fletcher. Clay was an official for the non-for-profit company Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable and was also on the town's planning and zoning committee. And her mother, Sheila, was a town alderman and was an assistant to the city prosecutor. And so Basically, from the outside, the Fletchers were your average family. Sheila and Clay really valued their public image. They valued that friendships within the community. They were seen as pillars of the community, and they were regulars at the local church, which they attended every Sunday. When Lacey was 9, the family moved to a 2-story house on a cul-de-sac, and they were quick to find their place in that community. They made a lot of friends in the neighborhood. Lacey made friends with all of the other kids on the cul-de-sac on the street. She attended a Brownfields Baptist school in Baton Rouge and is described as being a vibrant, smart, and fun girl. She liked country music, she liked playing volleyball, she was on the volleyball team in school, and when she wasn't hanging out with her friends, she was listening to Mariah Carey or she was watching Disney movies. She loved Disney movies from an early age. She was diagnosed with severe social anxiety and autism, which got progressively worse throughout her life. And in her early years, she was quite vocal and outgoing, very warm, very welcoming girl, like made friends very easily. Like when she moved to the new place, she made friends with all the kids on the street. But then when she was around 14, her condition really accelerated and she had to be homeschooled because of her increasing social anxiety. Some reports also claim that she was bullied in high school, so I think that also could have been a consideration as well. People who knew her from her childhood said that she was quiet, one of the sweetest people you could ever imagine, who welcomed friendships. I remember her as a sweet, kind person. She was one of the first people that I was friends with when I started at the school, and she was already there. She was thoughtful. Just sweet is the word. I keep coming back to one of the sweetest people you could ever meet. So very kind. Lacey could be quiet. She could also be vocal with her opinions. When Lacey started her schooling in the 9th grade, that is when things really changed. She really changed and things just got worse for her. She became nonverbal. At that point, those who knew Lacey really had to come to terms with this new version of her, because she went from this outgoing, friendly, fun girl to a recluse. She was, sort of a shell of her former self, or a shell of the girl that they used to know. She would really leave the house after she started her schooling, and she was essentially hidden away from the world, and because of this, she lost a lot of those friendships that she had. Someone who knew her and her childhood said about the situation, quiet. She became different. She just didn't see things the way a lot of the other kids did. I last saw her around 15 years ago, like my dad. I wouldn't say I was a particular friend. She'd hang out with my younger brother sometimes, but she was definitely different from other kids her age. I knew she was not your typical teenager. She was smart. She was smart as hell. But I guess the best way to put it is that she wasn't as mature as us. She still liked children things, not teenage things. When she was 17 or 18, she was more into Disney movies and country music. She did invite us over to watch Disney movies despite being more withdrawn, but that wasn't my forte. I was 18. I used to ride motorcycles. Now, despite these big changes in her life, she did still have friends. She would still invite people over to watch Disney movies with her. Although she left the house rarely, she would still leave the house. She was doing exercise. It seemed like her parents were just trying to do everything that they could to keep her life as similar as I had been. You know what I mean? Like, to make it so there wasn't too many changes for her. Then, as she got older, she got into her 20s. She really took her time to the West. And there's some conflicting reports on what exactly happened at this point, so I'll go over both claims. Some sources claim that Lacey suffered from a rare neurological disorder called locked-in syndrome. And this is basically where your brain locks, but your body doesn't. So you are fully conscious and aware of your surroundings, but you just cannot move. you can't do anything. You can't move your limbs. You just sit there and you're aware of your surroundings, but you can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Your body just does not work. The other side of this, the other claim is to the coroner doctor, you all become, he doesn't believe that Lacey had locked-in syndrome. He said, quote, "I don't know where that time came from or what source it came from. In all my years as a practicing physician, I have never heard of that time. The only diagnosis is that I know that she did have was fast social anxiety, severe autism, and that's it. Those are only two. Your diagnosis is..." So basically the two sort of claims are that you have this rare neurological condition called lockdown syndrome where she couldn't physically move her body. And, the other claim is that she didn't, but that was something preventing her from moving, right? Because she was, from this point, she was just on the couch at all times. So it's a similar situation, There was no evidence that she was ever restrained to the couch, but she, lived, breathed, went to the toilet, everything on this couch. She did not move from this couch really for 12 years, obviously. And if it wasn't locked-in syndrome, we don't know what it was. We don't know if it was just her choice, her parents' choice. We really don't know if this sort of syndrome what was keeping her on that couch permanently for 12 years, maybe longer. Age 21 is the last time Lacey was ever seen by anybody outside of the house. Anybody outside of her family actually saw her. One of her neighbors, a 56-year-old guy named Robert Blades, told a news outlet that he had seen her exercising on the road outside her parents' house with this small way. This is when she was 21, like I said. And then, after that, she was never seen again. Robert said that years later he asked her father Clay about her, what she was up to, what she had been doing, and he said about this situation, quote, "I asked Clay because I hadn't seen her for so long. I actually thought that maybe she got married and moved on. I said, 'How is Lacey? How's she doing? How she moved off, went to college, or what?' He replied, 'Honor, she's still here, she's fine.' And then he changed the subject, and that's it. He didn't explain why we hadn't seen her at all. I just took him at his word. I had absolutely no suspicions about what had actually happened at that house over the road from us. No, a lot, nothing." And I think that's really what makes this case so insane, is that she practically went missing for 15 years. From 21 was the last sighting until 36 years old. Nobody saw her outside of her parents, and because of what upstanding citizens her parents were, pillars of the community, nobody really questioned anything. Nobody. They're like, "Oh, where's Lacey been?" But that's kind of the extent of it. No one imagined that anything untoward was happening, or that she was just rotting away on her parents' couch for that entire time. No one questioned it. No one really questioned why they hadn't seen her, because there's no way these people, Sheila and Clay, would ever do something, or they just wouldn't expect something like this to happen in that tiny town in this family that is like such a well-known family in the community. No one expected it until, of course, the thought of January 2022, when Lacey's mother, Sheila, called 911 and reported that her 36-year-old daughter, Lacey, had stopped breathing. And after authorities got this call, they went to the house. They found Lacey's decomposing body on Sheila and Clay's couch, on the family couch. The coroner noted that her skin had effectively melted into the couch. So Lacey, because she had been on this couch for so long, she had practically foozed to the couch. And based on the evidence at hand, the coroner's office reported that in order for this to make sense, and for the decomposition to make sense, for her injuries to make sense, she had to have been on that couch for at least 12 years. Her cause of death was determined to be acute medical neglect, dating back to at least 2010. They couldn't determine exactly when she last moved from that couch, according to the coroner. He said, quote, "It was a culmination of things stemming from severe medical neglect, which led to chronic malnutrition, acute starvation, immobility, acute ulcer-formation, osteomyelitis, which is a bone infection, which then led to her final condition of sepsis." It was also determined, actually, that Lacey had been dead for 1 to 2 days before that 911 call was made. So her death was officially ruled a homicide. Her legs were completely red all over, and there were these sores all over her legs that went all the way down to the bone. Her legs had also melted the padding of the couch underneath her and also underneath her. That was just a buildup of urine and feces, which indicated this wasn't just a couch. This wasn't just somewhere that she slept. This was also her toilet for the entire time that she had been there as well. The scene was completely disgusting. It was horrific that her parents had let it get like this. It was disgusting that her parents had let this happen to their daughter. And it was clear that in the last moments of her life, she had been on this couch, unable to move, sitting in her own urine and feces, starving, dehydrating, probably fully aware of this as well. Her entire body was smeared in feces, and not only that, but there were maggots and insects infesting her body. They were eating away at her flesh while she was still alive. It's honestly probably the most shocking thing I've ever heard of. Like, I cannot even fathom somebody enduring such a slow, painful, horrific death at the hands of their own parents. Like, the fact, like, I think that might even be the most shocking part of it. The fact that her parents had to walk past her every day and see her like that and smell that, it smelled really bad. She had been decomposing back in her own urine and feces for 12 years. The smell would have been unimaginable. And of course, because she was alive for all of these years, they were feeding her. They were giving her water. So they had to go up to her to feed her and give her water and see her like that, see her on the couch and choose to do nothing about it. They would eat dinner in the dining room where they would have been able to see her smell. And then finally, after 12 years of creating this situation for their daughter and literally torturing her daughter like that is torture, to leave somebody like that who was unable to move. So after 12 years of torture, she finally dies from their neglect, and they call 911 and say, "Hey, our daughter has stopped breathing." And not just that, but to add salt to the wound, when Sheila called 911, she couldn't even get her daughter's age right. She guessed incorrectly 3 times before finally settling on the age 31, which was still incorrect. She was 36 years old when she died. The investigation into Lacey's death began immediately as soon as her body was discovered. And of course, at this point, they're estimating that she had been there around 12 years, but to figure out exactly how long she had been there was going to take even more intensive investigative work. What we do know is that, of course, she was discovered in the early morning of the 3rd of January 2022 after her mother called 911 at New York City, and as high as frequently seen by people with loved ones after they've crashed into the metal fence of the high school. This actually came on a Monday after her parents got home from a weekend away, so they had left her that, like, this, obviously, this brings in so many more questions because they left her there for an entire weekend while they went away, knowing that to care for her, she can't get off this couch, she has no way to get food, water, she's still alive. When they left for this weekend away, and they just left her defenseless with no way, just to dehydrate and starve to death. They left her there knowing that she was unable to care for herself and there was nobody else there to care for her. Of course, you can't go without water for more than 72 hours, really. So this very well could have been a contributing factor to her death. A lack of water, dehydration, and the lack of food as well. It really brings into question, obviously we know that her parents didn't care for her over all of these years, but it really brings into question how little they were feeding her and giving her water, and they're wondering anything else for her. So why were they just really giving her water, the bare minimum that they could, giving her food, the bare minimum that they could? It just brings so many questions. How many times did they leave her there by herself while they went on weekends away and went and did their own thing? It also brought up a lot of other questions that you guys might have as well. Like, for example, why didn't they get her help sooner? If they weren't able to care for her, then why didn't they get somebody to help her? Why didn't they, put her into a care facility where somebody could be that for her 24/7 to help her? And another major question is, if they were responsible for her death, why would they call 911 when it's so evident that they were responsible and that she had them running on their couch with their knowledge for so long? Well, as it turns out, they may have been forced to call 9111 neighbor. One of their neighbors spoke to a news outlet and said that a different neighbor had seen Lacey on the couch and had essentially forced Sheila to call 911. After making that discovery, he said, quote, "There was one neighbor here, we don't know who it was, had supposedly seen Lacey on the couch like that and told the parents they had to call the police." And that's what we were told. I don't know how much truth there is in that. So if what he's saying is true, then, it may not even have been their choice to call 911. They may have been forced to do it. And if they hadn't been forced to do it, they may never have let this secret get out. Lacey's body may never have been discovered. Which also brings up another interesting point, which is, how were they able to hide this from everybody for so long? No relatives or friends or neighbors, nobody knew that this was going on. And, these people are like pillars of the community. They're well-liked in the community. They've got friends in that town. Did they just not have any gas for 12 years? And no one ever thought anything about it? Not to mention the reports of the smell at the scene, like when investigators entered the house and they just said it was the most intense odor that they had ever smelled. How do you know? They never have anything delivered to the house in all of that time? Like, no delivery driver smelt it? I mean, maybe a delivery driver did go there and he just knew them. So he didn't really think much about it. Maybe he thought they had not taken that bin out in a while, I guess. Did anybody ever come to their house or walk past their house or do anything in all of this time? Did they keep the windows closed? Is she in a part of the house where nobody could see? They never had anybody there. It's insane to think that they were able to hide this for so long. Especially that kind of smell would have been so intense, feces and urine, that had been that for 12 plus years, a body that had been rotting there for 12 plus years. How did they put up with the smell themselves? They had to eat in that house. They had to eat near her body. So, they went about their day, walked past her body every day. The smell would have smelled out their entire house. I mean, maybe at that point, you would just be used to it and you wouldn't smell anymore. But even if you've smelled like a place where that's like a dead rat or something, bright, like something that small creates such an odor after it's been dead. So something to that magnitude must have, I just don't understand how they lived in that, breathed, and that ate me of that. Even all the particles in the air would not have contaminated that food. It's just insane to think about. And unfortunately, because the only people who actually, because they hit this from the world so well and from everybody so well, the only people who know the truth is Lacey, Sheila, and Clay. We may never know the whole truth about any of this, and it's just such a confusing and deeply, deeply upsetting situation. What's even worse is when they found her body, she weighed PS 90.6, which is 44 kilos. So she was extremely emaciated, and it was clear that she was so deprived of food and so hungry because she actually started eating the sofa around her. So during her autopsy, inside her stomach, they found parts of sofa, they found cushion padding, and feces as well, because obviously the entire couch was covered in feces. And this actually goes against the lockdown syndrome as well, because if she had locked in syndrome, then she wouldn't be able to move her arms or move her head or her mouth in that way in order to be able to eat the cushions in the sofa. There were also signs that she had tried or been trying to lift herself up from the couch, in an effort to probably relieve some of the pain that she was feeling from being there. And the bed sores, you get really bad sores if you're not moved around, right? They have two people that they cannot move in hospitals. That you really have to go in there and move them around very often. Otherwise, you get these terrible, terrible bed sores. And she did. She had sores that went all the way down to her bones. The coroner also said that her body, or her remains, tested positive for COVID-19, and she hadn't seen a doctor since 2010. The images from the crime scene as well have been described as horrifyingly graphic, and they were never released to the public because of how, traumatizing they even are to look at. I mistakenly stumbled upon them, and I really, really wish that I had not, because they are, it's horrific. It's traumatizing to look at that and realize that somebody lived through that. It's one thing to hear about the horrible say that she was in, but to see it is heartbreak on a whole nother level. Some reporters that were given access to photos of the crime scene said in one photo, Lacey appears almost buried up to her shoulders in the sofa, which was described as a wide and deep hole. She looked emaciated, and her body was slumped over on her left side and a right across the top half of her body near her neck. She was left unclothed except for a small blue t-shirt which was pulled up to her neck, exposing pretty much everything. Her eyes stayed open and wide and was staring. Her mouth also stayed open and appeared to have a full set of front teeth. Her legs were pulled up and crossed underneath her. Her face was covered in large red blotches, and there was excrement smeared all over her body. It had mated in her hair and even inside her ears close up. So the flesh and eye buttocks appears to be literally worn or eaten away from the 12 years that she hadn't moved from the couch. And there were large raw yellow areas where the skin had disappeared. Other back and buttocks areas was so blackened it was impossible for the average person to identify any shape or form. When detectives spoke to Shell and Clay about the situation, they explained that Lacey had developed autism in 9th grade, and that's when she started homeschooling. And when she started homeschooling, she basically locked herself to that couch and also began using as a toilet bath the entire time that she was in a nursing home. Clay and Sheila claimed that she was of sound mind and made her own decision. So it was her choice to stay on that couch. And Sheila also claimed that she would often move her and clean her bed sores, and that Lacey never complained of any pain or anything like that from bed sores. They also said that they would bring her meals and water, and they set up a portable potty for her, which she would never use. But all of this is so extremely hard to believe, considering just everything at the scene directly contradicts all of these claims. Some reports actually claim that the floorboards beneath the couch had started to deteriorate because there was so much feces and urine on them, which, if they were regularly cleaning her and moving her, then that wouldn't happen. It was so apparent that they were not cleaning her and they were not cleaning the area. I mean, the fact that they could even try and claim that they were is crazy. I mean, the audacity to neglect your daughter for so long, to be the cause of her death, and to have unequivocal evidence that you did neglect and you did cause her death, and then to come out and be like, no, we took great care of her, is crazy. Is crazy work. If they were taking care of her, then her body would not be used to the couch. The floorboards would not be deteriorating from the amount of urine and feces that had built up. She would not be eating the couch around her. There wouldn't be bed sores and sores that went all the way down to her. But some reports even suggest that over the 12 years that she was there, her parents would sit just meters away from her and watch TV. I mean, at this point, it's clear that they didn't even consider their daughter a possum anymore. They just saw her as this object that they stored in their house and they had to sometimes feed them water. I mean, even if it is true that Lacey is the one who wanted to stay and be on that couch, her parents should have been the ones to clean her, help her move her around so she didn't get bed sores, properly sustain her with food and water. And if they couldn't do that, and they didn't have the ability to do that, they should have gotten someone to help them, or they should have found a facility that can help them. Because also, you know how I mentioned we don't know how many times they went away? They left her there. I mean, there was evidence that they did go away. They would just leave her there when they went on vacation, and they went for weekends away. They didn't get anyone in to help. They didn't get anyone in to look after her. That's why nobody knew she was missing. That they would just leave her, and they would leave her there on the couch, unattended, unable to care for herself. They also apparently complained about her. There were reports that they would complain to some friends and family that, when they signed up to be a parent, they didn't sign up to be a caregiver, which, yes, you did. When you sign up to be a parent, you sign up for any of the possibilities that come with being a parent. It's literally your role as a parent to care for your child that you have brought into the world. It was nobody's choice but yours to have a child, knowing all of the possibilities of having a child and what can come with that anyway. So on the 2nd of May, 2022, a grand jury was held where there was enough evidence to move forward with a trial against the Fletchers for the second-degree murder of their daughter, Lacey. And the very next day on the state of Maine, they were arrested, which honestly, I know that's like a process and everything, but I'm finding a little hard to understand why it took 5 months for them to be arrested. Like Lacey was in their house that they lived in as evidence that they lived in there with her rotting on the couch. They walked past her body every day. Nobody else even knew about her. From the immediate second that her body was found, it was evident that they were responsible for her death. At the very least, that neglect led to her death. So, while I understand there's a process in everything, but it's just as crazy to me that it took 5 months to arrest them. And what's even more shocking is that 2 days after their arrest, they were allowed out on bond, $300,000 bond each, which they both posted, and they were just allowed back out. Their arraignment was planned for around July, August of that same year, 2022. And then that trial was predicted to start as early as October of 2022. But then after that release, that Fasten Diamond was actually quashed because of the wording in it or something like that. So they were rearrested on the 19th of June in 2023 and indicted again by a grand jury, which wanted to see them face trial. They were finally brought to trial in March of 2024, and from what it seems like, it was a pretty cut and dry case. There was a lot to go over up until this point. They had vehemently denied any wrongdoing, which is crazy, and they were not willing to take fault for Lacey's death. But at the last minute, they changed that pleas from not guilty during the trial. That was 6 hours of testimony to go over from 11 witnesses. So I'll just give you kind of the main points. According to police, when Lacey was 14, on the year 2000, she was taken to a psychologist, and the psychologist diagnosed her with extreme social anxiety. Sheila and Clay went to a doctor in 2010 without Lacey and told them that she was refusing to leave the house and that she was defecating and urinating on the floor and on the couch, at which point the doctor told them to consider hospitalization. So a medical professional told them that Lacey should be hospitalized, and they just didn't do it. They just decided, nah, let's just let her rot. Instead, slowly over the next 12 years, a close family friend of the Fletchers, a woman named Jess Easley, said that she had known the family for 25 years and that she didn't even know they had a daughter, despite their weekly catch-ups. Of course, Sheila and Clay testified that Lacey refused them medical attention, which everyone just near was major BCs, or their lives didn't help them escape a conviction. Thankfully, both of the Fletchers took a deal from the judge where they pled no contest to a lesser charge of manslaughter, and for that, crimes they were sentenced to 40 years each with 20 years suspended. The judge presiding over the case said, quote, "We can discuss whether or not this process took 3 months, 6 months, or 3 years. I don't really care. This is a tragedy. The truth is that Lacey lay down on a couch and died slowly because she didn't receive medical or mental health care." She learned Clay both prior to the trial and showed that very first ounce of remorse since this entire thing started, and said that they wished they could have done more to change the result, which, too little, too late. Probably not crime, because they shouldn't have any remorse. They're probably crying because they have to go to prison. Now, they were both 66 when they were sentenced to prison, so hopefully they will never be released. If they are released, they will have to serve 5 years supervised probation. But that's it. That's everything for this case. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one, because honestly, I think this is one of the most horrific cases I've ever looked into. I cannot even fathom. I have not even a shred of sympathy for Sheila and Clay, because, you have to be truly, truly evil to your core in order to do something like that to your child. To anybody, but to your child, to watch your child rot and die on your couch, that is a form of evil I have never even thought about. I didn't even know evil like that existed like that in real life. These people are scary, and they should never be allowed in society again. The fact that their friend of 25 years didn't even know they had a daughter is insane. Obviously, they didn't want anybody to know because they were at home torturing her. So they can't let that get out. But the fact that they were able to have this mask and go out in public and have friends and be well-liked in the community and whatever is insane. And the fact that Lacey was probably fully cognitively aware of everything that was going on, to the point that, she started eating the couch that was covered in feces and cush, and Patty was found in her stomach. I just cannot even believe. But that's everything. That's the whole case. I know this was a really hard one to stomach today, but let me know your thoughts. That's all for me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you in my next career, my guys.